In this video, we explore how Better Call Saul conveys meaning without dialogue, without relying on words at all.
Some stories explain everything through dialogue. Others trust the audience, letting images carry meaning. Better Call Saul is one of them. Nowhere is this more evident than in Jimmy McGill standing outside Davison, Maine, framed almost identically across two moments. First, he hesitates and walks away, resisting compromise. Later, in the same frame, he hesitates again, but chooses to step inside, accepting the job he once rejected, as if the frame itself is asking the question, what has changed? And the answer arrives not through dialogue, but through a small, almost insignificant detail, a switch labeled, "Always leave on, never turn off," which Jimmy deliberately flips off and then back on again, revealing a growing comfort with bending rules, with testing boundaries. And in that same environment, even the world's second-best lawyer mug refusing to fit into the company car's cup holder becomes more than a visual gag, quietly reinforcing the idea that Jimmy does not belong in this world of clean lines and corporate expectations, that no matter how hard he tries to adapt, something about him will always resist fitting into spaces designed for someone else. Even the most non-dramatic moments are visualized. Mike sits in silence, waiting for the Kettlemans to take the bait, eating an apple and placing the core beside him. One becomes many. The passage of time is shown, not told. At the same time, the show is capable of expressing intimacy with an almost disarming simplicity, particularly through the recurring imagery of Jimmy and Kim sharing cigarettes. Their very first interaction establishes a level of closeness that dialogue could never replicate, as Jimmy casually takes the cigarette from Kim's mouth and returns it without hesitation, collapsing personal boundaries in a way that feels natural and unspoken. This act becomes a visual motif that follows them throughout the series, appearing in moments of vulnerability, tension, and connection, until it reaches its final iteration in prison, where the same gesture, once filled with possibility and intimacy, now carries the weight of everything they have lost, transforming it into a quiet, devastating form of closure. Out of all the cigarette-sharing visuals, the one in Season 3, Episode 3, Sunk Costs, where Kim offers to help Jimmy with the case he is fighting against Chuck, stands out. The silhouetted frame in that moment is, hands down, one of the most striking images of the show. This idea of visual mirroring extends beyond relationships into the very structure of the narrative, particularly in the parallel journeys of Jimmy and Chuck. In Season 1, Episode 3, Nacho, the opening scene presents a moment from the past in which Chuck carefully packs his belongings into a box while visiting Jimmy in jail. This is later inverted when Chuck becomes the one confined, trapped within his own home, and Jimmy assumes the role of caretaker, packing things away as he enters Chuck's self-induced prison. This creates a visual symmetry that communicates a complete reversal of their situation. Kim Wexler's internal conflict, too, is rendered almost entirely through visual language, most notably through the repeated camera movement beneath the desk, which initially captures playful intimacy between her and Jimmy as they nudge each other's feet during meetings, a subtle expression of shared rebellion and connection, but later returns in moments of tension where that playfulness disappears entirely, leaving behind only stillness, and eventually evolves into a symbol of suffocation when Kim, now alone and consumed by the pressures of Mesa Verde, is shown squeezing a stress ball beneath the same desk, the exact same framing now conveying her restlessness. In Season 2, Episode 7, Inflatable, Jimmy tries to persuade Kim to become his partner in a new Wexler-McGill firm instead of joining Schweikart, a reputable firm. He argues that she deserves more than a lateral move and insists that Schweikart is just Howard Hamlin by a different name. Kim gently turns down his offer. But later, after her interview, she accidentally calls Rich, her new boss at Schweikart, Howard, her former boss at Hamlin. In that brief slip, the show quietly validates Jimmy's point. It leans more towards psychological storytelling through dialogue rather than purely visual storytelling. While it isn't visual in the literal sense like the apple montage or the cigarette motif, it still operates on the same principle, allowing meaning to emerge naturally instead of explicitly stating it. The show's ability to externalize emotion through action rather than dialogue is perhaps best captured in the moment where Jimmy carefully removes tape from the wall, following Chuck's method with precision and care, only to suddenly rip the final piece off in frustration, a single shift in behavior that encapsulates years of resentment, betrayal, and unresolved emotion, demonstrating how even the smallest physical actions can carry immense psychological weight when framed correctly. Even in moments of shared rebellion, the show never loses sight of the fundamental differences between its characters, as seen in the aftermath of Jimmy and Kim throwing beer bottles, where Jimmy dismisses the consequences with casual indifference, while Kim stays behind to clean up the broken glass, a small but telling distinction that foreshadows the divergence in how they process responsibility and guilt, hinting at the fractures that will eventually define their relationship. In one of the show's most subtle yet effective uses of visual storytelling, a simple image of a cockroach crawling along a wall becomes the catalyst for a major narrative shift, serving as a callback to Lalo's earlier description of Jimmy as a cockroach, someone who survives no matter what, and allowing Lalo to arrive at a crucial realization without a single line of exposition, a realization that ultimately sets into motion one of the most shocking and tragic events in the series. And in the follow-up scene, Kim notices that the candle flickers when Howard enters. Later, as she and Jimmy argue, they see it flicker again, prompting them to look past Howard, where Lalo suddenly appears, shocking them. Using the flickering candle to signal someone's presence inside Jimmy and Kim's apartment becomes a subtle way of building tension without relying on dialogue or music. How can I end this video without talking about the famous ice cream scene being devoured by ants? There are many theories. Some say the ice cream represents Jimmy's innocence, others say it represents Saul's skills being consumed by criminals. But I have a slightly wild take. For years, that one ant, the one that climbs all the way to the top of the cone, has bothered me. It can't be Lalo. Lalo never reached any real heights using Saul's skills. That ant at the top has to be Walter White. Because out of all of Saul Goodman's clients, only one man truly reached the absolute peak of the criminal world, while also destroying Saul in the process. So to me, that ant at the top represents Walter White. It has to be either Saul or Walter White. But it can't be Saul, because Saul cannot be both the ice cream and the ant consuming it. If we agree that the ice cream represents Saul, then, in my opinion, maybe a wild one, that lone ant is Walter White. What do you think? Let me know in the comments if you agree or completely disagree. If you enjoyed this, like and subscribe for more video essays exploring the craft of storytelling.
So smash that subscribe button